Hello and welcome to the snapshot of the 2020 in-floor electric radiant heat systems. A quick introduction. My name is Sergey Schlepentak. I'm the Thermosoft Warm Step Director of Product Development as well as Business Development. I have over 10 years experience with Thermosoft in the floor heating industry. At that time, I've spent quite a bit of time working with different focus groups as well as R&D, as well as task forces like the NWFA Radiant Heat Task Force. Number one goal is to make sure that every project is successful at every aspect. That is, means from the sales point to the installation point to the customer satisfaction at the end, and any technical issues that may arise in between. I will be joined today by Ron Oliver. Ron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, actually, I've a bit of an old hand at this. Been doing floor covering since 1983. I've worked extensively with both solid, engineered, laminate, vinyl plank, the well versed with LVT, WPC, SPC, and bamboo as well. Have an extensive training background. My priority is to make sure that we help the industry understand the interaction between in-floor heating and various types of floor coverings.
Now, Ron joins us from the technical department in a previous role from the technical department at actually Hallmark Floors. We were able to pull him out of retirement to come join us, and we'll get into more of that a little bit later. What is radiant heat? A lot of people think that radiant heat is a way of heating the floor. It's not. Radiant heat is a heat that gets conducted directly from one source to another. Having a heated floor means that floor will transmit that heat right up to your feet, which will then radiate up through you and through the room. It's not like forced air or hot air where the air goes up, comes down, and then it convects around that in particular. Now, thermal comfort is just that. Where do you feel comfortable? And that is something to consider when selling these floors or working with these floors, to ask the customer, what is that you consider your thermal comfort? That is the number one misunderstood question by customers, because they typically don't know what their thermal comfort levels really are unless they've experienced them. Now, understanding in-floor heating systems. An in-floor heating system, particularly the electrical ones, have a power source, typically the electrical breaker. That power is provided to the thermostat, and then it goes into the heating element itself. Sometimes next to the thermostat, there is also a transformer that is required for low voltage systems. Something to consider when you see any low voltage system, a transformer that allows the system to operate around 24 volts will require a roughly 40-pound box that's 30 inches by 16 by 4 that sits in between the joists in that zone of up to 150 square feet. And one of those is needed for every low voltage zone. To hide those boxes will require a heavier gauge wire, sometimes as thick as a pinky, to go 50 or 100 feet if you want to hide those boxes in a basement, because they do sometimes hum and you don't necessarily want them in that particular room. Something to consider for floor coverings, electric heating systems, unlike before where they weren't recognized by the NWFA, they are now recognized under hardwood, both in solid and engineered, as well as a hybrid system where it's a hardwood over an SPC core or a WPC core, and some SPC or rigid vinyl flooring. Any of the systems that we talk about now will be compatible with these types of floor systems when installed properly. So different types of systems that you need to consider. Number one, the NWFA guidelines now recognizes 10 different electric types of heating systems. Some things you should note that the NWFA still says no class 1 vapor barriers above a wood subfloor over an unfinished non-climate controlled basement or crawl spaces. Any film or foil type system or a membrane type system is typically considered a class 1 vapor barrier. Any heating system that requires the addition of a 6 mil poly means that it requires a vapor barrier. This is just a quick look at the different types of heating systems that are out there, and we'll go over all of these in a little bit more detail as we go through this presentation. Starting with fully embedded systems, what fully embedded means is that the system is completely encased in a slab of cement. The heating system itself is typically secured with either a strap or tied to rebar or a metal mesh, and then a 2-inch or thicker layer of cement goes over the top of the system, let alone go below, as much as needed to go below. When you have a layer of cement that is, or concrete that is that thick, the system does require a 30-day minimum cure time. And then a lot of times it will require additional moisture testing or some sort of moisture mitigation before being covered up by a wood floor or any other type of floor covering. Ron, do you want to talk about some challenges of those coverings?
Yes, obviously the same concerns are in place when it with the same concerns you would have with a normal concrete slab. The plastic vapor barrier underneath that gets ripped and torn by the aggregate in the concrete. So, after the system is fully dried, proper moisture testing, must be done, and any mitigation efforts that are necessary taken.
For surface embedded systems, I'm sure you've all seen these types of systems. They include a heating cable, and sometimes they include a membrane. The membrane systems are not recognized by the NWFA. They're not acknowledged by the NWFA. Some of the challenges are, number one, the membrane itself is a class 1 vapor barrier, so that poses its own challenges over certain installations. And number two, a lot of these membranes are not compatible with a self-leveling mortar, and they are an isolation membrane by definition, which means that the stresses that the wood floor would put on a system that's glued to this will end up pulling this completely separated from your subfloor, which is not in line with what the wood floor installation procedures require. Ron, any challenges you want to address with these types of systems and flooring?
Yeah, obviously, when you talk about the tremendous amount of cement or leveling mortars that need to be used, controlling the quality of that is many, many times out of the installer's hands. And when you're talking about engineered wood floors, yes, they are more dimensionally stable, but they do move. And if there's any issues with the cementitious materials used, as Serge was talking about a moment ago, floor failure becomes an issue. And of course, immediately everybody starts pointing fingers at the hardwood flooring installer. So, user beware.
Something to consider, all systems are appropriate for the applications that they are right for. There may be a simpler way to install it, depending on the system that's available out there, but the ultimate goal is to get the customer a correct system that's sufficient for their installation. And this is meant to give you something to know, to look out for, to avoid mistakes, rather than giving you everything that you can do. Because as we know, the wood floor, vinyl floor, the floor covering, every customer comes up with something different for us to address and install a floor in to make sure that it works properly. Now, similar to the previous systems, these systems are a little bit easier to install because they're already pre-formed and pre-shaped into an area. Again, the same way, they need some sort of a self-leveling underlayment or a mortar or concrete mix over the top. It's typically a 3/8 inch layer over the top of the heating system, which means that there's going to be about a 1/4 inch I'm sorry, a half-inch total coverage of mortar installed in there before you install the floor covering. So consider those heights. Uh, Floor challenges that you will need to address with these systems, Ron?
Yeah, the obviously with the heating mat with the anti-fracture holding mesh, uh, this is one of the favorites of the tile industry. And again, the challenge always um, is this the best system for a wood floor, a laminate floor, or an SPC WPC rigid product? While it will function well and is recognized by the NWFA, there are better systems than this particular one for the application of the floor coverings we're discussing here.
Something to consider mostly is the installation time. Anytime you have any mortar that gets involved in the mix, even if you're using the right mortar, like a good Pullman self-leveling underlayment, you still, because of the thickness, should give it 2 to 3 days to settle down. And if you're doing it in between sleepers, you're going to have that run twice. So you've got a 6-day wait time for a 500 square foot area to dry before you can really do any type of a flooring installation. That applies to any mortar type system. So going away from the mortar type systems, which these have the same types of challenges, just a different look of how the systems look during the installation, we go to the non-embedded systems. And those could be in a variety of different flavors as well. Any kind of a low voltage polymer heating mat or a metal mesh heating mat has those low voltage challenges, again, keep in mind. And one thing that you should understand is when you have a polymer mat, that polymer is typically is some sort of a conductor sandwiched between 2 sheets of film. That film is a class 1 vapor barrier. If it's not appropriate, you shouldn't use that type of a system. Sensor locations are big challenges with these types of systems because you need to decide where you want the sensor, and these systems don't leave much room to have a sensor positioned where it'll read the average of the temperature without actually being directly impacted by the heating system itself. And Ron, any challenges the floor coverings have with these?
Yeah, some of the earlier things we discussed, the thing that is important to remember is a nice even heat transmission out of these systems. What we haven't discussed is the NWFA requirement of 6 watts per square foot per hour of total output. That is actually something most of these systems struggle to meet.
The metal foil heating mat with grounding cable can be used in 2 different types of ways. This is also a non-embedded system. Benefits of these systems are a great retrofit, as you see on the right side, where you can come back and install it in between the joists as a retrofit. This isn't an ideal case because in a retrofit type situation, you still have a system that is designed to be pushed up against the subfloor, and it may eventually not provide as much heat as you want because of that additional layer of subfloor plus the heating system subfloor, any type of underlayment that may already be there, plus the floor covering themselves. You want to get that heat as close as you can to that floor covering in order to have that most efficient energy transfer. The other challenge is that any type of a foil type system, the foil is usually part of the safety, so you cannot glue to it, you cannot nail through it. So it's for floating installations only. And sometimes because the wires are a little bit on the thicker side, they are not approved for use under a vinyl because they will telegraph through to the top of the vinyl if the system has not been tested with that particular vinyl in the past. Ron, any challenges that you see with these types of systems?
Yeah, one of the common challenges is the 2 diagrams on the lower right. They can have that floor nice and tight, but as the house expands and contracts seasonally, gravity takes a hold and those systems can sag away from the subfloor if the installer hasn't been very, very careful, creating inconsistent heat and a buildup of heat between the mat and the subfloor itself, creating very inconsistent surface temperatures of the floor covering.
Now, the last types of systems that you'll see here will be the fabric heating mat or fabric heating underlayment with a thermal cutoff. Now, these are the universal systems that are the most common and the easiest to install systems under a either vinyl, glue down, nail down, or floated for the fabric heating mat, or floated only for the underlayment. We do have to have a little notice. We actually manufacture this system as well as some of the other ones you've seen before. The reason we have the multitude of different systems is because there is a right system for the right application. This is not the end-all be-all solution for all applications, but this is the most universal solution for any type of a nail down, glue down, or floated wood, vinyl, or even laminate flooring that is rigid. The fabric heating mat, which one company that I'll mention, or one brand name that I'll mention, is WarmStep. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on that. Is and has been tested with many floor covering manufacturers, as well as installation sundries like adhesives and fasteners, to be compatible. It's one of the few systems out there that's actually gone through the testing process with different floor coverings, underlayments, and additional accessories there to confirm compatibility. Really, it's designed to overcome all of the challenges that you heard before for all the systems. However, reach out to us when you have a project in order to get guidance on that. The underlayment is a floating only application. It is designed to be a very quick install with a laminate or an SPC type vinyl. We'll go into a little bit more explanation about what you should know with a radiant heat system and what you should consider when doing the installation of this type of a system. Ron?
Yeah, with radiant heat principles, we look at a very different scenario. The the forced air heating systems basically push all the hot air to the top of the house, and so what happens? You have very inconsistent heating. With cold environments and tight homes, every time that air cycles through the furnace, all the moisture in the air is pushed right up through the exhaust pipe, whereas we don't have some of those issues with a radiant system. It's designed to emanate directly from the system into the flooring, which now acts as a thermal mass, heating people, furniture. It's a nice even distribution of heat. So very, very important. Whole house humidification has been discovered to be an issue that's closely associated with forced air heating. So with the efficiency of radiant heat and the new HVAC systems, the evaporative humidification systems really have no chance to humidify the house. Steam systems are much, much more efficient. And so what happens is the little bit that the furnace is running, quite often, it's just the blower motor distributing some humidity into the room. Because as everybody listening knows, many, many times the unhappy results of floors that are not used in a proper environment, which is where data loggers come in, and Serge can address that a little bit.
Now, from the side of WarmStep, we've used the FitBox data logger quite a bit. In the 10 plus years that I've been with Thermosoft, I've never seen radiant heat itself cause a failure in a wood floor. What I've seen is evidence of wood floors failing because of improper use, uh, as well as improper temperature control or improper humidity control. Since we've started using the data loggers, which are highly recommended, even in the NWFA radiant heat section, as well as other sections in the NWFA new installation guideline, the data loggers give the floor a voice to allow us to hear what exactly the customer has put the floor through, or if they've used it properly. And it allows you to have confidence that the flooring manufacturer will take this information and be able to use it to properly determine what was the cause of the failure. We
Serge,
know that,
the beauty of this as well is with the data logger, it's now linked to the homeowner's electronic media and gives them a warning sign that something is going awry before it does.
exactly. Now, I know we left you with a lot of information here. Our contact information is on the screen. You can reach me at sergi@thermosoft.com or by phone at 847-393-4815. If you have any more technical questions about warm step or any floor heating system. Ron?
And if you want to talk to me about how wood's going to react to those systems, I can be reached at ro@thermosoft.com and via my cell phone at 951-453-9127.